The gunshot echoed through the Montana mountains as Hazel Zimmerman clutched her 7-month-old son closer to her chest, her heart pounding wildly. The year was 1876, and everything she'd built over the past 2 years had crumbled in a single night. Blood stained her husband's shirt as he lay motionless on their cabin floor, and the men who'd killed him were coming for her and worse, for little James. "Hand over the child, Mrs. Zimmerman," the tallest of the 3 men demanded, his voice cold as the winter wind. "Your husband stole what belonged to my family. The boy will cover his debt. Please," Hazel begged, backing toward the door. "James is innocent. He's just a baby." The man's cruel laugh sent chills down her spine. "The Blackwell family always collects what's owed, one way or another." Hazel ran. The freezing February air stung her lungs as she fled into the darkness, her baby bundled against her chest. Behind her, she heard boots pounding the dirt, gaining with each desperate step she took. The moon betrayed her location, casting long shadows across the uneven ground. A hand grabbed her shawl, yanking her backward. She screamed as she tumbled, twisting to protect James from the impact. The baby wailed, his cries piercing the night. "No, please." Hazel sobbed as rough hands pried her son from her arms. She clawed at the man's face, drawing blood, fighting with the fierce desperation of a mother. "Knock her out," one of them ordered. "She's more trouble than she's worth." The last thing Hazel saw before darkness claimed her was her baby's terrified face disappearing into the night. When she woke, dawn was breaking over the mountains. Her face pressed against frozen earth, her body broken but alive. James was gone. Her husband was dead, and something inside her hardened to stone as she pushed herself to her feet. She would find her son if it was the last thing she did. 2 days later, Hazel stumbled into the town of River's Edge, her clothes torn, her face bruised, and her eyes hollow with grief and determination. The small mining settlement was 20 miles from her homestead, the closest place to seek help. She collapsed on the steps of the sheriff's office, her strength finally giving out. Sheriff Sam Prescott had seen his share of desperate souls in his 30 years. But something about the half-dead woman on his doorstep stirred something protective in him. Tall and weathered from years under the Montana sun, with eyes the color of faded denim, Sam had built a reputation as a fair but uncompromising lawman. "They took my baby," were the first words Hazel spoke when she regained consciousness in the town doctor's small infirmary. "They murdered my husband and stole my son." Sam leaned forward in his chair, his expression grave. "Who did, madam?" "The Blackwell family." Her voice strengthened as she spoke. 3 men. They said my husband owed them." Sam's jaw tightened. "The Blackwells, of course." They controlled half the territory, using fear and violence to expand their holdings. Good folk had been disappearing or turning up dead for years, but no one dared testify against them. "Mrs. Zimmerman," Sam said gently, "the Blackwells aren't people you want to cross. If they've taken your child, I don't care who they are." Hazel pushed herself upright, wincing at the pain in her ribs. "They have my son, my James. He's 7 months old and he needs me." The determination in her eyes gave Sam pause. Most people cowered at the mere mention of the Blackwell name. This woman, despite her slight frame and injuries, radiated a fierce resolve that commanded respect. "Your husband?" Sam asked carefully. "What was his name?" "Thomas Zimmerman. We had a small homestead north of here. He was a good man." Her voice caught. "He wouldn't steal." Sam nodded slowly. He'd heard of Thomas Zimmerman, a hard-working man who'd struck a modest silver deposit on his land last summer. Land the Blackwells had been eyeing for years. "Mrs. Zimmerman, Hazel," she corrected. "If you're going to help me get my son back, you might as well use my name." Sam couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips. Hazel, then, I need you to understand something. The Blackwells don't just have money and men. They have judges and politicians in their pockets, going after them. It's not as simple as riding in with a posse. I didn't ask for simple, Sheriff. I asked for help. Hazel's green eyes met his without wavering. Will you help me or not? Sam studied her for a long moment. He'd spent years upholding the law in a place where the law was increasingly meaningless. He'd compromised, looked the other way, told himself he was being practical. But staring at this woman who'd lost everything yet refused to surrender, he felt something long dormant stir within him. The name's Sam, he said finally. And yes, Hazel, I'll help you. 3 days later, Hazel sat astride a dappled mare, her borrowed clothes too large for her frame but her seat steady in the saddle. Beside her, Sam adjusted his hat against the midday sun, his expression unreadable as they crested the hill overlooking Blackwell Ranch. Their main house is there, he pointed to a sprawling structure in the distance. Stables to the left, bunkhouse for the ranch hands beyond that. If they're keeping your boy anywhere, it would be in the main house. Hazel nodded, committing every detail to memory. How many men? Usually around 15, Sam replied. More if they're expecting trouble. And are they expecting trouble? Sam's grim smile was answer enough. Word travels fast. They'll know you survived and they'll know you're looking. Hazel's hands tightened on the reins. Then we need a plan that doesn't involve charging through the front gate. I've been thinking on that. Sam reached into his saddlebag and withdrew a folded paper. There's a woman who works in the Blackwell house, Mary Colton. She was in town yesterday and I managed a word with her. Hope flared in Hazel's chest. Did she see James? Is he all right? She says there's a baby in the house. Mrs. Blackwell has been caring for him, calling him her miracle. Sam's expression darkened. Seems she lost a child last year and never quite recovered. Mary thinks your boy is being treated as a replacement. Hazel's stomach twisted. The thought of another woman claiming her child, erasing James's true identity, filled her with cold fury. Mary's willing to help, Sam continued. She says Mrs. Blackwell takes the baby for a walk in the gardens every afternoon, just the two of them. It might be our best chance. Hazel stared at the distant ranch, calculating. When? Tomorrow, 3 o'clock, she nodded, a plan already forming. Then we have preparations to make. The following day found Hazel hidden among the dense pines that bordered the eastern edge of the Blackwell estate. From her position, she had a clear view of the manicured garden, where, according to Mary, Elizabeth Blackwell would bring James for his afternoon constitutional. Sam had positioned himself closer to the stables, ready to create a distraction when the moment came. The weight of his revolver pressed against her hip, he'd insisted she take it, though she'd never fired a gun before. The minutes stretched like hours as Hazel waited, every sense alert. What if Mary had betrayed them? What if the routine had changed? What if the garden gate opened? Hazel's breath caught in her throat as a well-dressed woman in her 40s emerged, pushing a small perambulator. Even from this distance, Hazel could see the expensive fabric of the woman's dress, the careful arrangement of her hair. But all that faded to insignificance when the woman bent to adjust something in the carriage. James, her son. His dark curls unmistakable even from this distance. Hazel's entire body trembled with the effort of staying hidden as Elizabeth Blackwell walked the path, occasionally stopping to speak softly to the baby. The woman's face was gentle, her movements tender. In another world, Hazel might have felt pity for a mother who'd lost her child. But this was not another world. This was a world where men murdered and stole with impunity, where a woman's grief became an excuse for cruelty, where Hazel's son was being raised by the very people who'd orphaned him. When Elizabeth reached the farthest point in the garden, near the small pond that reflected the afternoon sun, Hazel heard the sudden commotion from the direction of the stables. Shouts and the whinnying of horses punctuated the peaceful afternoon. Elizabeth turned toward the noise, hesitating. Several ranch hands ran toward the source of the disturbance. Sam had done his part. Hazel moved, silent as a shadow. She slipped from the trees and crossed the distance to the perambulator. Elizabeth's back was turned, her attention on the chaos by the stables. Hazel reached the carriage and peered inside. James lay there, dressed in clothes finer than anything Hazel could have afforded, his dark eyes wide and curious. For a heartbeat, mother and son stared at each other. Then James smiled, a gummy, delighted smile of recognition that broke something inside Hazel's chest. She reached for him just as Elizabeth turned back. "What?" The older woman's shock quickly transformed into rage. "Get away from him! Guards, guards!" Hazel scooped James into her arms, his solid weight both familiar and miraculous. "He's my son," she said, backing away. "You know he is." Elizabeth's face contorted. "He's mine now. Richard promised me. After losing my David, he promised." Guards were running toward them now, drawn by Elizabeth's screams. Hazel clutched James tighter and ran for the trees, her heart thundering in her ears. She had to reach the horses Sam had hidden on the other side of the pines. Had to reach safety. A shot rang out, splintering bark inches from her head. Hazel ducked, shielding James with her body as she zigzagged through the trees. The baby, startled by the noise and motion, began to wail. "SHH, sweetheart, SHH," Hazel gasped, stumbling over a root. "Mama's got you now." Another shot, closer this time. The guards were gaining. Panic clawed at Hazel's throat as she pushed her exhausted body forward. She couldn't fail now, not when she'd come so close. A horse crashed through the underbrush ahead, and for a terrible moment, Hazel thought they were surrounded. Then she recognized the rider. "Sam," he reined his horse to a stop beside her, extending an arm. "Give me the baby and get on." Without hesitation, Hazel handed James up to Sam, then grabbed the saddle horn and pulled herself up behind him. The horse, overburdened but strong, surged forward just as the guards reached the edge of the trees. Bullets whistled past as Sam pushed the horse to its limits. Hazel buried her face in his back, one arm around his waist, the other helping to secure James between them. The baby's cries subsided to whimpers as the steady rhythm of the galloping horse soothed him. They rode hard for an hour, taking paths only Sam knew, doubling back across streams to confuse any pursuers. By the time they reached the small line shack Sam had prepared as a hideout, twilight was painting the mountains in shades of purple and gold. The simple one-room structure was well hidden in a stand of aspens, stocked with enough provisions to last several days. Sam dismounted first, helping Hazel down with James. Inside, a crude but clean crib waited Sam's handiwork from the day before. "They'll be looking for us," Sam said, securing the door. "But they won't find this place tonight. We've bought ourselves some time." Hazel nodded, too overcome to speak as she examined her son in the lantern light. James seemed healthy, well-fed. The Blackwells, for all their evil, had at least cared for his physical needs. Now he stared up at her with curious eyes, his tiny hand reaching to touch her face, and Hazel felt tears spill down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at Sam. "I can never repay what you've done today." Sam's weathered face softened as he watched mother and child reunite. "Some debts don't need repaying, Hazel." Later, after James had been fed with the goat's milk Sam had thoughtfully procured and laid down to sleep in his makeshift crib, Hazel and Sam sat by the small fire, speaking in low voices. "The Blackwells won't stop looking," Sam said, his expression grave in the firelight. What happened today, they'll take it as a declaration of war. Hazel stared into the flames. I know. We could leave the territory, head west to Oregon maybe, or north to Canada. She looked at him then, noting his use of we instead of you. You'd come with us. Sam met her gaze steadily. I've been sheriff in River's Edge for 8 years, done my best to uphold the law such as it is. But today is the first time in a long while I've felt like I was on the right side of something that mattered. Hazel considered his words. Running means James and I would always be looking over our shoulders. He deserves better than a life of fear. What are you suggesting? She squared her shoulders. The Blackwells have terrorized this territory long enough. Maybe it's time someone stood against them. Sam's eyebrows rose. That's a dangerous thought, Hazel. More dangerous than what we've already done. She shook her head. You said it yourself, they have judges and politicians in their pockets, but they can't own everyone. There must be others who are tired of living under their shadow. A slow smile spread across Sam's face. As a matter of fact, I know quite a few. Over the next 2 weeks, hiding in various safe locations throughout the territory, Sam and Hazel built their resistance. Farmers who'd lost land to Blackwell schemes. Merchants forced to pay protection. Widows whose husbands had stood against the family and paid with their lives. One by one, Sam reached out to those he trusted. And one by one, they agreed to help. Through it all, James thrived, growing stronger each day in his mother's care. And something else grew too, a connection between Hazel and Sam that deepened with each shared danger, each quiet conversation by firelight, each moment of unexpected laughter amid the tension. Hazel found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, the careful way he handled James, the quiet competence with which he approached every task, the rare but transformative warmth of his smile. Sam, for his part, discovered in Hazel a strength and resilience that humbled him, a fierce intelligence that matched his own, and a capacity for joy that somehow survived despite everything she'd endured. You're staring again, Hazel said one evening as they sat outside a remote hunting cabin, James asleep inside. Sam didn't deny it. Just thinking about how different you are from when I found you on my doorstep. Different how? Stronger. Though you were plenty strong then. He paused. Happier maybe, despite everything. Hazel considered this. I have my son back, I have hope. Her eyes met his. I have you. The simple declaration hung in the air between them, honest and unadorned. Sam reached across the space separating them, his hand finding hers. Their fingers intertwined, and neither felt the need to say more. The next morning brought news from town. One of Sam's deputies, loyal to him rather than his badge, rode out with information. The territorial governor was arriving for a hunting expedition with Richard Blackwell. It was the opportunity they'd been waiting for. If we can get evidence of the Blackwell's crimes to the governor, Sam explained to their assembled allies in the barn of a sympathetic farmer, we might finally see justice. What kind of evidence? Asked a grizzled miner whose brother had disappeared after a dispute with the family. Hazel stepped forward. Testimonies, financial records showing fraud, and she hesitated. The ledger. Sam turned to her, surprised. What ledger? When they attacked our homestead, they were looking for something Thomas had hidden. Something that would ruin them, they said. Hazel's expression was determined. I think my husband found proof of their crimes, murders, bribes, whatever they've done to build their empire. That's why they killed him. Do you know where this ledger is? Sam asked. Hazel nodded. I think so. Thomas had a hidden compartment in our cabin beneath the hearth. He showed it to me once, said if anything happened to him, I should look there. A murmur ran through the gathered men and women. Actual evidence of the Blackwell's crimes would be powerful indeed, especially in the hands of the territorial governor. It's too dangerous, Sam argued later when they were alone. Going back to your homestead. The Blackwells probably have men watching it. Which is why I have to be the one to go, Hazel insisted. They're looking for a woman with a baby and a tall lawman. They won't be expecting me to come alone. Sam's face darkened. Absolutely not. We'll find another way. There is no other way. Hazel placed a hand on his arm. Sam, trust me. I can do this. Their eyes locked in silent battle. Finally, Sam's shoulders slumped slightly. Not alone, he conceded. I'm coming with you. We'll leave James with Mary. The woman who'd helped them at the Blackwell ranch had since joined their cause, proving herself both loyal and resourceful. 2 nights later, under a moonless sky, Sam and Hazel approached the burned shell of what had once been her home. The Blackwells, in their rage, had put the cabin to the torch, but the stone hearth still stood amid the charred ruins. Stay alert, Sam whispered as they dismounted at the edge of the clearing. I don't like this. Hazel nodded, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. They crept forward, every sense strained for danger. The hearth loomed before them, a dark monument to all Hazel had lost. Kneeling in the ashes, she felt along the base of the stones, searching for the loose one Thomas had shown her. Her fingers brushed cold metal the latch. With a soft click, a section of the hearth's foundation slid aside, revealing a small compartment. Inside lay a leather-bound book and a folded document. Hazel's hands trembled as she reached for them. A twig snapped in the darkness. Sam's gun appeared in his hand as he spun toward the sound. Hazel, run! 2 figures emerged from the trees, rifles raised. Well, well, drawled a familiar voice. Look who's come home. Richard Blackwell stepped into view, his aristocratic features twisted in a cruel smile. Behind him, more men materialized from the shadows surrounding them. Mrs. Zimmerman, Blackwell continued, approaching casually. I must commend your spirit. Not many would dare steal from me once, let alone return for seconds. I've stolen nothing, Hazel said, clutching the ledger to her chest as she rose to her feet. Everything you've taken, my husband's life, my home, my son, was never yours to begin with. Blackwell's smile vanished. The ledger, Mrs. Zimmerman. Hand it over and perhaps I'll let your cowboy friend live. Sam stepped between them, his gun unwavering. That's not happening, Blackwell. No, Blackwell raised an eyebrow. 6 of my men against the 2 of you. Those aren't favorable odds, Sheriff. Make that 12 against 6, came a new voice from the trees. Deputy Marshal stepped into the clearing, followed by several of the men and women who joined their cause. Odds seem fair now. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Blackwell's face. This is a private matter, Marshal. Best you and your friends move along. Not happening, Marshal replied, his rifle trained on Blackwell. You see, we're tired of you and your family running roughshod over decent folk. Tonight that ends. Tension crackled in the air as both sides assessed the situation. Blackwell's men shifted nervously, clearly unprepared for organized resistance. The governor arrives tomorrow, Sam said, his voice carrying in the night air. He'll be very interested in what's in that ledger. And in the testimonies of everyone here. Blackwell's hand inched toward his gun. The governor is a personal friend. You think he'll take the word of dirt farmers over mine? I think, Hazel said clearly, that even the most corrupt official can't ignore a written record of murders, land theft, and bribery, especially when that record is in your own handwriting. Blackwell's eyes widened as he recognized the ledger she held. For a heartbeat, the night held its breath. Then Blackwell drew. Gunfire exploded in the clearing. Hazel felt Sam tackle her to the ground, shielding her body with his own as bullets whistled overhead. The battle was brief but fierce. When silence finally fell, Hazel raised her head to find Richard Blackwell lying motionless in the dirt, his eyes staring sightlessly at the stars. 2 of their allies were wounded, but none killed. 4 of Blackwell's men had fallen. The others had fled or surrendered. Sam helped Hazel to her feet, his eyes searching her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, still clutching the precious ledger. "Is it over?" Sam looked at Blackwell's body, then at the faces of those who'd stood with them. "No," he said softly, "but it's beginning to be." The territorial governor proved to be less corrupt than the Blackwells had believed. Faced with irrefutable evidence of their crimes and testimonies from dozens of witnesses, he ordered the arrest of the remaining family members and the seizure of their assets. Elizabeth Blackwell, broken by her husband's death and the loss of the child she'd claimed as her own, confessed to her role in the family's schemes. Justice, so long denied, began to take root in the territory. 6 months later, on a warm August evening, Hazel stood on the porch of her new home, a modest but sturdy cabin built on land granted to her in recognition of her husband's rightful claim. Inside, James slept peacefully, now 14 months old and taking his first unsteady steps. The sound of hoofbeats drew her attention to the path leading up to the house. Sam dismounted, removing his hat as he approached. No longer sheriff, he'd accepted a position as federal marshal, working to ensure that no family like the Blackwells could ever again rise to power in the territory. "You're late for supper," Hazel said, though her smile took any sting from the words. "Had to make a stop in town." Sam climbed the steps, something hidden behind his back. "Brought something for you." Curious, Hazel tilted her head. "What is it?" Sam revealed a small wooden box. "Been carrying this for a month now, waiting for the right moment." He opened it to reveal a simple gold ring. "Figured tonight was as good as any." Hazel's breath caught as Sam dropped to one knee before her. "Hazel Zimmerman, you're the bravest, most stubborn, most amazing woman I've ever known. I love you. I love James as if he were my own. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears blurred Hazel's vision as she looked down at this man who had risked everything to help her, who had fought beside her, who had shown her that love could bloom even from the ashes of tragedy. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Sam Prescott, I will marry you." As Sam slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to take her in his arms, Hazel thought of all they had endured to reach this moment, the loss and pain that had brought them together. The courage it had taken to stand against evil, the love that had grown, unexpected but undeniable through it all. Sam's lips found hers in a kiss that promised forever. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers, his voice rough with emotion. "No one will ever take him from you again, Hazel. Not James, not happiness, not hope. I swear it." In the golden light of sunset, with the mountains standing witness, Hazel believed him. Their path had been forged in fire and shadow, but their future stretched before them bright with possibility. And in a world where promises were too often broken, this was one that Hazel knew, with bone-deep certainty, would be kept. 1 year later, the Prescott family gathered around their table to celebrate James's 2nd birthday. The boy, sturdy and bright-eyed, squealed with delight as Sam presented him with a hand-carved wooden horse. "For my son," Sam said, his voice filled with pride. "The finest cowboy in the territory." Hazel, cradling their 2-month-old daughter Sarah in her arms, watched the scene with a heart so full it threatened to overflow. The road to this moment had been paved with hardship and courage, with tears and blood and unwavering determination. But here they were. A family forged not just by birth but by choice. By love that had proven stronger than hatred, by hope that had outlasted despair. As evening settled over their homestead, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Hazel stepped onto the porch with Sam beside her. His arm slipped around her waist as they watched the sunset together. "Happy?" he asked, his voice a gentle rumble against her ear. Hazel looked up at the man who had helped her reclaim her son, her life, her future. The man who had shown her that even in the wild, untamed heart of the frontier, love could take root and flourish. "More than I ever thought possible," she answered truthfully. And as Sam's lips met hers in a tender kiss, Hazel knew that this love, this family, this hard-won peace was what she had been fighting for all along.